You're getting scolded by PJ.
It was, yeah. Wasn't talking about.
No, don't
just grab the mic. Don't grab the mic.
Yeah,
okay.
whenever you grab the legs, it makes this like noise, and
If you can do it with rhythm, that's one thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I didn't know. I'd have made a beat. And we'd have just
Sorry if I came off a bit aggressive.
It's all right. Almost got my street credit back if I could have made a hip hop beat. Oh shoot!
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It is time for More Law Light. It's brought to you, as always, by Foreman Watson Holtry, FWH Legal. As most days, we are situated at 530 Frederica Street at the high-rise white brick edifice known as the F-Dub. How are you doing today, Peach?
I'm doing good. You?
Good, man. We have been clicking these podcast episodes out.
We have.
Yeah, it's like birthing babies.
I know. We've gotten ahead on a couple of them, and that's nice.
Well, today I had a meeting, PJ, and the person said, "Man," he's like, I didn't realize, but you're playing your podcast on the radio. And then he was like, and I heard, I could keep hearing snippets of it on radio and stuff. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, man, I once I heard that, I went back and started listening. He goes, I'm up to episode 42. And so the guy started at 1 and he's up to episode
That's
42.
Awesome.
So anyway, here we are doing More Law Light today. And I don't want to waste much time between you and I, because we got a very special guest.
That's fine. Real quick, I did want to tell you, so when I pulled up to drop Connor off at Estes this morning, the principal, Mr. Williams, he was up by the front door, leaned in to look at me, and he was like, "Hey, man, I saw your commercial. Your new one. It was hilarious. I loved it." And I was like, "Oh, thanks."
Yeah, so see, that's why we do what we do, like we talked about on the last podcast, why we're investing all the time and energy here. Good friend of mine, a person I didn't know up about 2.5 years ago, was introduced to him through our church. Harry Pedigo is here with us today. Harry, how are you doing, man?
Good, Travis. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I was dying laughing, PJ, a few minutes ago when Harry was telling us, when I said, "Hey, man, I want you to be on podcast." Harry's like, "I didn't know you did a podcast, but whatever. Here I am." It's sort of Harry's just the way he is, and I guess we met through Bridgepoint Baptist Church is where we met, and then you and I took a golf trip together. I think was the first time we spent some time together.
Yeah,
and
I've seen you couldn't golf too good.
So that's when you knew I'd be a safe friend.
Yeah. I knew you was my guy. Yeah, my guy right there.
And nothing's changed, man. That's why we're two peas from a same pot on the golf game thing. And I think we've been on a couple scramble teams together and done horrible. So when I met you, that's when I also learned that you are, I don't know your exact title, director or executive officer at the St. Benedict's men's shelter, homeless shelter. Kind of got to know a little bit about your story and what you're doing, and I think it's important that the people that listen to our podcast that don't know you get an introduction to what you're doing. So welcome to the show, and let's just jump in. Where were you born and raised, man?
Well, it's probably important for them to know we come from two different sides of the law. So
right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and I can't wait for people to hear this story, or as much of it as you want to share.
Yeah, and I'm an open book. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, actually, but I was raised in Bardstown, Kentucky. Okay. So about 2 hours from here. Mm-hmm. I don't go back here much for a lot of different reasons, but yeah, I mean, most of my family, Bowling Green, Louisville area, Bardstown area.
That begets the question: is ultimately you end up in Owensboro. So how did you get to Owensboro?
School of Hard Knocks. I bumped my head a few times. No, just growing up, I grew up very poor, and so growing up, man, was hard. It was a struggle, and I guess instead of trying to do better, I always tried to figure out how to drown out those feelings of inadequacy or not being equal to other people, and so got into drugs and alcohol, man, and it led me down a path that was dark and lonely and uncomfortable, and one bad decision after another. I ended up in Owensboro. It was either do something different and change my life, or continue to be in and out of trouble, or even worse, die. And I had kids at the time, and so I said, I want to change, and I stood in front of a judge, and he gave me that opportunity to change, and so I come to Owensboro Regional Recovery. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I walked in there 10 years ago, and I laid everything down. I knew I had one shot. One shot. I only had to do it one time, and that was it. And then from there, the rest is history,
Right. You've had such an amazing story. It started with sobriety, then from there, just how you've continued to better yourself. How long have you been with St. Benedict's?
I've been with St. Benedict's now going on 9 years.
And what is your official title there?
I'm the executive director.
Executive director. That's what I thought. So when did that opportunity avail itself to you?
Well, I became executive director in 2015. Around 2012, it was suggested to me by a friend, Joe Welsh, to just come down and hang out. And, I was judgmental like everybody else. I was this guy, had a treatment center, homeless shelter / homeless shelter that was judgmental of the homeless. And that's just the way it was, man. Coming as poor as I was, and I was way better than them guys. And so I was very closed-minded. But then I ended up down there and realized, like, God had changed my life and showed me, like, I'd been homeless my whole life, the last 15 years of my life anyway, prior to getting sober. And when I walked in there, like, he showed me exactly who I was. He said, You are these guys. And so, from there, it changed my life. And so, I think it's important to just say that it wasn't me that started this journey. It was God that started this journey. Yeah. Because what happens after that can only be defined by God.
Right. I know that I've seen on your Facebook page just recently, it's been within the last year, where basically everything on your criminal past is gone, right? Didn't I see?
Yeah.
What, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
It's gone. Nothing.
That's right.
You may find a speeding ticket or something on there, and
okay.
I don't even know if you'll find that. I haven't had any kind of trouble in at least 10 years. But yeah, complete expungement. Well, I got a pardon from the governor, and then I had everything fully expunged. So
you knew you were forgiven. But from the perspective of a history that any employer or any creditor, anybody wanted to look into your background, they could always see who you were before that moment, and now all of a sudden it's gone. What's that feel like?
First of all, it took away my street credit, and street credit's important when you work with guys that are homeless. It took away my street credit, but other than that, in all seriousness, it didn't really feel any different, man, because I didn't see myself as that person. Like, I know I wasn't that person. I just made some bad decisions, man. That wasn't who I was. Yes, it was on my record, but it wasn't who I was. But the reality was I just put myself through 8 years of college, associate's degrees, bachelor degrees, now my master's degree. And it got to the end of my master's, and it's like, I can't really practice therapy or any other form of licensure with a felony on they just won't. You just can't do it. Well, of course, now they got some laws where I think you can, but it's an extensive process. And so that was like, okay, God's not done with me. He's got something else, because I really had nothing. I applied for that 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. I done forgot about it, to be honest with you.
Right.
And then when it happened, I was like, dang it, I just lost my street credit that quick.
Look, he's worried about his street credit, but he's got, his tattoos got to give him some, right? His tats mean something, right?
Well, they do. They signify my faith and my struggles, and, those that I've lost. And none of them are jailhouse. They're all professional, and they all signify something, man. They all signify.
I have tattoos, but mine aren't nearly as extensive as yours, so, I'm not going to get into a tattoo battle with you, Harry.
He has a teddy bear in the small of his back.
I know, with a little rainbow. I know some other people like that.
He actually has our FWH logo on his shoulder blades.
Yeah.
Only I know that one, PJ. That was what is the purpose? What does St. Benedict's Homeless Shelter do?
Well, St. Benedict's Homeless Shelter is primarily we're an overnight shelter for men. We've got 64 men in there at any given time. And that was the primary mission and vision of the shelter, was just give a man a warm bed, a hot meal, and a hot shower. And it was like that from 2005 when it opened until About 2015, 16, when I took over as director, I just, as I educated myself and as I paid attention and listened to the clients, I just realized we could do more. And so with the love and community and the support coming in that it took to catapult, we started doing other things, right? So we've opened up an honor home for homeless veterans. It's a transitional home that helps them transition from homelessness back to self-sufficiency. And then we have 2 sober living homes that does the same thing, but primarily focuses on those that are chronically homeless or that are in recovery from substance abuse. And so then we moved toward that, and now we have a maternal home for women that are in a crisis pregnancy during homelessness, which is kind of the same focus, teaching them how to prepare to be a mother and how to care for their children and how to move from homelessness to being self-sufficient. And then we have a women and families facility. And so it's just kind of, there's a barrier or there's a population that we deal with that's not being addressed. That's what we focused on doing. And so that's kind of how it's just transpired and opened up to more things than just overnight.
It's become more specific in its mission because it's finding people groups that just a general overnight stay thing's not going to address. It's
correct.
It's finding these chronic situations that are complicated by some factor, pregnancy, being the mental part of being a veteran, all those things. So you found these people groups and you're meeting their specific needs.
Absolutely. And, a lot of it, too, goes into your line of work. A lot of individuals that we deal with have suffered some debilitating disability or an accident or whatever. A lot of times their mental health crisis that they're in has left them disabled. And so they're in the process of trying to get disability and go through these routines that it takes to draw an income because they're not capable of working and taking care of themselves,
The podcast is enough about us a lot of times, but you may remember that I had one of your, what you call them, residents clients.
It just depends on where they're at.
Really. A lot of your guys their transportation is walk or bike, right?
Right.
And because they've lost their license, they don't have a car, they don't have any of that. And so one of your residents was hit while on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And we represented him in that case, and I don't know, I haven't talked to him in a year or so. You know who I'm talking about.
He's actually an employee now.
Right, okay, yeah. So we were able to help him. I'm sure that financial assistance helped him some to kind of get his feet on the ground, and then he now is working for you.
And that's the thing about us, too, is like we're just not, yes, we're professional at what we do, and we have professionals that have different credentials that are qualified to address certain areas, but a lot of what we have is individuals working for us have been there. We have 4 or 5 that were clients at some point. They're the best tool, and they have a passion, they have a heart. They've been there, they understand, they know what it takes to get out of it, and so I think that's what makes us, I guess, I'll brag on us, I don't care, successful, and I feel like we are. I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, how do you measure the outcomes of success of an individual? And I said, you can't do that. You can't measure one's success because my success may look different than your success.
And happiness as well. I mean, I've been in the conversation about kids, our kids. You and I talked about this.
Yeah.
And you say, well, you want your kids to be successful and happy. Well, if one of my daughters decides to go live overseas and work with people in third world countries, and she never has more than $100 in her checking account, but every day she sees life change, to her, that she is happy and successful.
That's right.
So that definition, there's an American dream, the success of money, wealth, fame, those kinds of things. But each person, if you look at their story, their success and happiness is subjective. One of the things that I know has impacted your shelter, because the last time we got together, we talked about it, and that was COVID and the expenses that were related to everything that you had to do to comply, number one, to make it a safe environment, and then not only that your resources, a lot of people, there was a lot of reserves, but you were seeing that you were going into those reserves at the shelter because a lot of the people that you depended on for monthly donations or semi-annual donations, because of the effect COVID had on their businesses, they had to kind of shut down the coffers. I want to know, how are we doing on that? And then I want to make a specific ask here, on how people can help you. So how are things now compared to when we came over and did the check presentation a few months ago?
Back in February of last year when this all started, we were looking good. We were about ready to expand and move our men's facility and try to start doing women overnight. And we were looking at a reserve fund. Well, around November, that reserve fund was gone. And so expansion was out of the question. It was just now a means just to survive and make sure we could do what we've been doing. Since then, things are starting to turn around. They've got these vaccines that are rolling out. Our staff have been vaccinated. Our clients will be vaccinated next week. A lot of our volunteers are starting to get vaccinated. So the things are starting to turn around, We pushed our bed sponsors out, and so our reserve fund's starting to come up now. We're still on limited hours at our women and families facility. We're still operating half the time, so from 8 to noon. We would like to be back up from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but, soon enough it will be. Right. But it's slowly coming together.
Now, you used a word there that I don't want to gloss over. You said our bed sponsors. What is a bed sponsor?
That's a good question. So our bed sponsor is just a way that we factored in what it costs for us to care for an individual for a year, basically. And that includes, the utilities, what it costs to take a shower, laundry, groceries, just all that stuff. And it come out to about $500. Now, this was back in 2015 when it was an accurate number. But it's been a fair number because others have stepped up and we've kept that line open. So for about $500, an individual can sponsor a bed. And we leave that open. So what that means is we don't just say, well, we take 60 and that's it. Well, it's a fundraiser. So right. What that does, it helps us provide all that stuff to an individual. Case management, if they need medications, sometimes their first month's rent or a utility deposit, all that's included in that $500 that an individual can donate. And so what we do for that individual is we'll also put their name on a plaque in the facility. It sounds kind of, I guess, arrogant to some people, but what that does, it communicates hope. Those guys and those women look up at all those names that have sponsored beds and they think, man, we're not alone. People stand behind us and they support us, and so that motivates them to do stuff. And so a lot of times what we see is we've got former clients that are coming back sponsoring beds now because they know what it does.
Wow. And that's just an annual commitment. So if I say I want to sponsor a bed, I write you a check for that $500 or whatever, and then the next year I would re-up for that. It's an annual commitment. Is that right? It's
an annual commitment. Right. Yep. And it can be done different ways. Some people do it by sending $41.66, I think is what it breaks down to a month. Some go online and just have it recurring out of their debit card every month. Some do it bi-yearly, so they'll send 2 checks a year. Or,
250.
Yeah. Right, some people sponsor 4 or 5 beds at a time.
Gotcha.
And, if you're blessed like that and you can do that, that's a great thing. And some people don't even want, a lot of people will say, don't put my name on a plaque. And so, but we put something up there.
Right.
And typically it's a loved one.
I found myself in the trap of about 3-4 times a year we do donation drive-throughs where our staff goes out and all we do for the lunch, 2 hours at lunch, and I think you came over for part of one of them, but an hour or so at lunch, we serve donated food. Our people give it out. We use our time on the radio that we pay for to promote it. We took that money and we pick some type of a nonprofit to give it to. So when we chose St. Benedict's, I've been told that we had raised close to $1,000, and when the check came, it was, just under $1,000. And I found myself thinking, gosh, that's not that much. It's just I wish we did more, But when you put it in perspective, that's almost 2 beds for a year.
Yeah.
Then you see that every bit like that makes a difference.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter how much you can give. I think if you can give anything, whether it's your time or a shirt that you don't wear or a few dollars, it all makes a big difference.
Right.
It does. And I can tell you, we're very good stewards of our money. We operate 6 facilities for less than $450,000 a year. There are shelters in Louisville that serve the same amount of people we do every night on a $13 million budget with 160 staff, and we're doing it on 13 staff members and about 400 volunteers. So I think we're really good stewards.
Right.
And we have a lot of success. So, that money goes far.
Now, the second element, it sounds like, if I'm listening correctly, is that you also need manpower. You need people to help you. You need financial support. But how else can people help if they've made a financial commitment or they can't, but they do have time, or how can they help in that regard?
COVID kind of stopped us on everything. We just wanted to be safe, and so we stopped utilizing volunteers. And so that's kind of where our reserve funds were. We're double staffed. Now, as it's starting to break, if you've got a special skill or a talent. We've got people that do our graphic designs for us because they're graphic designers and they want to help with our fundraisers or just whatever it is. You can help in that way. You could lead a fundraiser at your work, kind of like you do. You can bring everybody together and collect items, or you can come down, and we've always got projects that can be done. More intentionally, you can come down and sign up, and, I'll give you a tour of the facility, and we can get you hands-on working with the guys or the women
like
at one of the
helping
facilities.
Laundry and doing things.
Absolutely.
Dinners. And
Yep.
I know that a couple of times we brought our family down and helped serve dinners, and just more that was to open the eyes of our kids to see the need. I don't want this to end today being an out of sight, out of mind type thing. And PJ, we just need to keep harping on, I think one of the things we're looking at in the future is how the podcast can help others, and, just continuing to get the word out about St. Benedict's sort
Absolutely.
of as a commercial break on each one of these, I think is going to be important. But how today, somebody listens to this podcast, how would they take that first step? Call, social media, website? What's the first step?
Yeah, we're on all of it. They can message us through Facebook. You can find us on Facebook under St. Benedict's. You can go to our website, which is stbenedictsowensboro.org, or you can call the facility at 270-541-1003. Any of those methods work.
Well, we certainly need to do that. Now, one of the things before I let you go, PJ, you may have a few questions you want to
I actually
chime
do
in.
have one.
Chime in. Go ahead and
Yeah.
give the question.
Oh, go,
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's all you.
All right. So
Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
I thought he
See
was
what I
going to
have to
say,
deal
why
with?
did you grab the mic, Harry? Why did you touch the mic?
See, what Travis doesn't realize is that I can make his voice sound very feminine in editing, and I haven't done it yet, but I think this might be the time.
This is it. This is the moment.
No, so the question I have is, and normally I don't get real serious, but for once I'm gonna get serious. So with my older son, he has a series of mental health issues. He's only 16. We're going to try to get him his first job this summer. But I know that, we've talked to his therapist and stuff like that, and with the issues he has, they could potentially impact his ability to hold a job, to be responsible, to pay the rent, and be able to be self-sufficient if he doesn't have someone there. And I know there's been a lot of talk in, the last 5 years or so, how much mental health and homelessness kind of go hand in hand, because there are a lot of homeless that deal with mental health issues, and that's what puts them in that situation. So there's always that concern in the back of my mind, if Trina and I were to die in a car wreck tomorrow, what would happen to Logan? So there's always that concern, like, would he be in that situation? So I guess my question is, when you have someone come in, if it is mental health issues that is putting them in a situation to where it's making them difficult to maintain a lifestyle or living or whatever the case may be, how do you deal with individuals like that?
I would just say this to give you hope. For one, a lot of these individuals that end up with us, a lot of it is, yes, they have some mental illness and some mental health issues, but it's the lack of relationships that has led them where they're at, right?
Right.
And a lot of them can move forward and be self-sufficient with the right tools and the right guidance. And so what we do with those individuals is, we bring them in and we love on them, and we understand that they may do things that don't coincide with our rules, right, that the average person would get put out for. So we try to work with that the best that we can, right, within reason, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. And we try to help them get the resources they need, and what they may need is a guardian, a legal guardian. So we go through that due process to do that, and there's other facilities that they can go to depending on what their mental health status is, what their diagnosis is. We handle those on a case-by-case basis. I wouldn't say that just everybody with a mental health issue ends up homeless, because that's not the case.
Right.
But a lot of times they do because they don't want to follow rules or they don't want to take medications. It's almost freeing to them. I know that may sound weird, but it is. They have some sort of, it's their choice to be there or not be there. And you have to have a certain level of respect for them, even though to us outside it looks kind of odd, and but I would say don't feel sorry for those individuals, because a lot of them choose to do what they're doing because there are a lot of options out there for them. And the end result is, I don't want those options. I want to try to live my own life. And if that means I have to check in at a shelter every day, and be fed or whatever, well, then I'm taking care of myself. And so to them, that's the best that they can do. And to me, I have a lot of respect for those individuals. So I don't know if that helped, PJ. With the question.
Logan, we have a very large family. So, in the off chance that Trina and I were equally killed tomorrow.
Is that right? Somebody would.
Yeah, he would have someone that would step in. But I know that I have friends who have, their children too have mental illnesses, and they don't have a large family. And if something were to happen, there's no telling, what the future holds. So that's kind of why I asked that question, was for anybody out there. And like you said, I know that mental illness isn't 100% the cause of homelessness. Not every homeless person has issues. I just know, like, dealing with Logan and seeing the hurdles he's going to have to jump over in the future, because he is one of those. He does have an issue with, like, authority or following the rules, and he kind of has his own perspective on things that tends to be skewed. And
is that mental illness, or is that being 16?
It's also
to me,
puberty.
That's what I'm saying. That's being 16.
Yeah,
it plays a big part in that too. But yeah, there are times where, like, common sense isn't necessarily there because he sees things the way he wants to see it. And I just, we know that could potentially be an issue in the future, but, we're doing our best to try to help him navigate those waters to make better decisions. And,
I would suggest bringing him down. And I tell you,
okay.
And if you're out there and you got somebody in the family, or you got maybe a child that's just bring them down. Let me give them a tour, and it does impact them a lot of. It's eye opening, and for them to know that, if you don't follow rules, you may have to be in a structured place where you do have to follow rules, or you don't have no place.
Right.
It is eye opening, and it can, but it can also provide a solution to one day if something was to happen to you and Trina. But something was to happen, God forbid, and hopefully that doesn't. But it may provide a solution, and you may say, I can go to St. Benedict's.
Okay.
And so, I'm glad that we're there for them. And you're right, not all of them do. But right now with this pandemic, mental illness is on the rise, homelessness on the rise. We haven't seen the true fallout of the pandemic when the moratoriums lift, and people with their fears and their phobias and being contained and isolated for so long. We're all, there's a lot of people out there mentally distraught right now. And who knows where it takes us. So I'm just glad that we've got our doors open.
You said something about maybe something that we do in cases is that we will help this person get a court-appointed guardian. I don't want to go too far into that, but the due process procedure. So in our lives, we've all known somebody that cannot function on their own, at least totally. They may be able to do parts of things. They may be able to know how to clean themselves and that kind of thing, but they don't know how to cook for themselves. And they certainly don't know how to keep a checkbook, or they don't know how to, when they get finances, what to do with them. And so there is a process. There is a process in our state where you can have someone be appointed for different levels. There's limited guardians, there's full guardians, there's all kinds of things. There's conservators, which is just money. We think of this just as, well, that's what happens when you are either totally mentally challenged from birth and would, just disabled. And so those kids need it when they turn 18, or we think about it for the elderly. We think, okay, well, this, Papaw's losing it. We're going to have to get somebody appointed as his guardian. But the reality is that's for all age groups. And the court system, what they do is they require there to be proof from a social worker, proof from a medical or psychiatrist, and then the county attorney makes sure that the burden of proving this, and you can bring people in to testify as to this need. And a jury has to hear there can be temporary ones, but to get permanent ones, you have to have a jury process. It's an interesting process, and not a lot of people understand that's something that can start that process for somebody can be life-changing.
Absolutely.
And that's what you were referring to, right?
Absolutely. And it's not a quick process.
It is not.
It is not. They're very
not
intentional with the decisions that they make in regards to somebody's life.
And they should, because, you're taking away to some extent liberties of a person. When you're saying, I'm going to put this person in charge of doing A, B, and C for you, and think about how much we all like to have our own freedom to do what we want to do. And then all of a sudden somebody's saying, well, I'm going to make the decisions about where you're going to live. I'm going to make the decisions about you're going to go to the doctor, and those kinds of things. And you're kind of giving that up to that person. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the areas where what you're doing day to day and seeing is somewhere where your paths cross with the paths of attorneys and the justice system. I'm sure there's others, but that's one of the positive ways, that our paths cross.
If I don't see handcuffs, it's a positive way that my paths crossing with anybody. And if
right,
it ain't costing me a retainer,
right.
you know?
We had a lot of fun with Harry when you first met him, PJ, doing some videos for Help Aid the Homeless. What way I want to close this is that Harry and I were both nominated to be prom kings for a prom that was a fundraiser for Help Aid the Homeless. And our competitor, the third, was Brian Jackson at the radio station at Cromwell Media. So Harry and I go about this whole thing where we're going to send each other around town to do like pay it forward type challenge. And we thought we were raising all kinds of money. And so the question was just going to be, were the people that I sent Harry to, did they chip in more money, or did the people he sent me to chip in more money? So it's kind of fair. It was a fair way of friends to go about this. And lo and behold, neither one of us won it. Brian Jackson won, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Well, of course he did. He has a radio platform. He just set up there.
He's got like 24 different stations
right.
that he can get on.
And like 100 times a day, he's like, don't forget to, donate to Aid the Homeless and WVJ and all that stuff. Come on, Brian.
Well, the good part of that was, and more importantly, and I just saw Brian this morning, in fact, but the more important thing is that in that process, I got to know you better and got to see your heart and got to see what your passion is, and I'm thankful for that. And this is just the beginning of a relationship as far as getting the word out on our podcast and what Foreman Watson Holtry will be doing with you guys. It's just, and I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And PJ, I appreciate what y'all are doing, Travis and Foreman Watson Holtry. I mean, it's a big deal.
Well, I want you to stick around for about a minute or two after we go off, because I want to talk to him, PJ, about our video vision for nonprofits and how we can help with that. So we need to talk about that. But for now, this has been Law Light. Anything else, Peach? You got anything else?
No.
No more Debbie Downer questions?
No,
okay.
no.
All right. Let's stay upbeat here.
That's right.
It's been Law Light with Harry Pedigo from St. Benedict's, always brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtry, fwhlegal.com. Until next time, thank you guys.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!